You ever stumble upon something so unexpected, so deeply personal, that it shakes your entire world in the blink of an eye? Imagine this. One quiet afternoon, I found myself alone in our house, the kind of silence that felt heavy, almost unnatural. Then my eyes caught it, an old diary, tucked away in the back of a forgotten drawer. It wasn't just any diary. It was my wife's. And what I discovered inside, it wasn't something I was prepared for. In fact, the pages whispered secrets that made me question everything I thought I knew about her, about our life, and about the very future we had been building together. This is the story of the day I went through my wife's old diary and uncovered the haunting truth that she never meant to be a mom. If you're here right now, watching this video, it's because you want answers. You want to understand what could drive someone to hide such a huge part of themselves, their fears, their regrets, their silent battles. You want to peel back the layers of a relationship that, on the surface, looks perfect, but underneath, maybe hides shadows that no one talks about. Well, buckle up, because by the time you finish watching, you'll know the full story. You'll see what I saw, the unfiltered, raw truth. And you might even find yourself asking questions you never thought you would. Let me take you back to the beginning. My wife, Emily, has always been the kind of person who lights up a room with her smile. Warm, kind, and fiercely protective of those she loves. Our marriage seemed solid, built on trust and years of shared memories. But like many people, she had her private side, a part of her world that she kept locked away. I never imagined that behind her laughter was a secret so profound it could alter the course of our lives forever. The diary I found wasn't just a collection of daily notes or fleeting thoughts. No, it was more like a window into Emily's soul during a time when she was struggling with a truth she never voiced aloud. I remember holding that worn book in my hands, pages yellowed and edges frayed, knowing that every word I was about to read would change how I saw her. It was terrifying but impossible to resist. What you'll hear in this story isn't just about my discovery, it's about the emotional turmoil that followed. The confusion, the pain, the moments where I felt like I was losing the woman I loved to a past I never knew existed. You'll meet Emily through her own words, her fears about motherhood, her doubts that were never shared, and the reasons she never told me the truth. You'll also see how this revelation forced me to question my own role in our marriage and what it truly means to support someone through their darkest moments. Now, I want to be clear with you. This isn't a tale of blame or anger. It's a human story about vulnerability, love, and the unexpected challenges that come with truly knowing another person. It's about the masks we wear and the secrets we bury to protect those we love, even if it means hiding the real struggles inside ourselves. As you listen to what happened next, you'll feel the tension rise. The moments when I tried to confront her, the silence that followed, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through this together. But it wasn't easy. Each page I read felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth of emotions, where every turn revealed more questions than answers. I know many of you watching have faced your own struggles, maybe not the same, but something that shook your foundation. Maybe it was a secret you kept, a fear you hid, or a relationship that changed forever after one discovery. That's why I'm sharing this with you, not just to tell my story, but to create a space where we can all reflect on the complicated, messy nature of love and truth. If you're ready, I want you to stay with me, because the full truth is coming. The moment when everything changed, the conversation that could have broken us, and the unexpected path we had to take to find peace again. You'll hear about the doubts that nearly destroyed us, and the hope that kept us holding on. But before we get there, I need you to understand this. What you're about to hear is raw and real. There are no easy answers, and there are no neat endings. Just like life, it's complicated and sometimes uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it's worth sharing. After that first shocking discovery in the diary, my mind couldn't stop racing. I kept replaying the moment I found it, how it wasn't even hidden very well, just shoved behind some old papers on the shelf. That made me wonder, had Emily ever meant for me to find it? Or was it just a careless mistake? I started thinking about the last few months leading up to that day, trying to piece together clues I'd missed. Because looking back, things hadn't been quite right for a while, but I'd been too distracted or maybe too unwilling to notice. There were subtle changes, moments when Emily seemed distant or distracted, times when she'd snap at me over small things or retreat into silence for hours. I chalked it up to stress from work or everyday life, but now I couldn't help but wonder if it was more. I remembered how she'd been avoiding family events and canceled plans with close friends without explanation. There was this constant tension in the air between us that neither of us addressed. And yet, when I asked her about it, she always said she was fine, just tired. But that tiredness seemed different somehow, like a deeper kind of exhaustion that wasn't just physical. The diary gave me a glimpse into that exhaustion. It wasn't just about being worn out. It was about carrying a secret burden she'd never told me about. I began to question everything we thought was normal in our marriage. Had I been blind to her pain? Or worse, had she been hiding something from me all along? As I dug deeper into the diary's pages, the mystery only thickened. Emily's entries spoke of fear. Fear of becoming a mother, fear of losing herself, and fear of disappointing everyone, including me. But the way she wrote about these feelings was confusing. Sometimes, she seemed almost relieved at the thought of not having children, and other times, heartbreakingly sad. What struck me the most was the absence of any mention of me. I never saw my name or even a hint that she'd shared these thoughts with anyone else. It was like I was a stranger in her mind during those moments, or maybe the one person she chose not to burden with her truth. That left me feeling isolated and desperate to understand who she really was beneath the surface. What added to the mystery was the sudden appearance of strange messages on her phone, texts from numbers I didn't recognize, brief and cryptic, always disappearing after a day. Whenever I asked, she brushed it off, saying they were just work contacts. But now I wasn't sure. Was there someone else in her life she was keeping secret? Or was she reaching out to someone for help? Someone who understood the fears she couldn't share with me? I started wondering if these mysterious texts had anything to do with the diary, if they were a sign of a bigger secret lurking just beneath the surface. Every little detail suddenly seemed suspicious. Friends and family who knew Emily well were equally baffled when I confided in them. Some said she'd always been private, even guarded, but none could have guessed what was going on inside her. There were whispers from a few people who mentioned that Emily had once spoken about a past she wanted to forget, something painful from her own childhood that might explain her fear of motherhood. But no one would say more. That only fueled my curiosity and made me want to dig even deeper. Was her past haunting her in ways I never imagined? Was her resistance to becoming a mom tied to something from years ago, something she hadn't told me or anyone else? At the same time, I couldn't ignore how these revelations were starting to change the way I saw our relationship. The trust that had once felt unbreakable was now fragile, stretched thin by secrets and silence. I found myself questioning not just Emily's feelings, but also my own judgment. Had I been so caught up in my version of our life that I failed to see her reality? Or worse, had I contributed to her feeling trapped and alone? These thoughts kept me awake at night, battling between wanting to understand and fearing what I might discover next. Then there was the night I overheard a conversation that made the whole situation even more tangled. I was coming home late from work when I heard Emily's voice on the phone, low and urgent, speaking to someone I couldn't see. Her words were fragmented, but phrases like, "I can't do this," and "it's too much" stuck with me. I wanted to confront her right then, but I held back, not sure if I was invading her privacy or stepping into something I wasn't ready for. Still, that moment planted a seed of doubt I couldn't shake. Who was she talking to? Was she planning something? Or was she begging for help in a way she couldn't admit to me? All these pieces, her diary, the strange texts, the mysterious phone calls, and her past, started weaving a complicated puzzle I couldn't put together yet. It felt like I was chasing shadows, with each answer raising more questions. I wanted to believe there was a clear explanation, a simple reason for why she'd kept all this hidden. But as I sat with the diary, reading and rereading her words, I realized the truth might be more painful and complicated than I ever imagined. And just when I thought I had a handle on it all, the diary revealed something I never saw coming, an entry that hinted at a choice Emily had made long ago, a secret that wasn't just about fear but about sacrifice. It was the kind of secret that could change everything I thought I knew about her future, and about what it means to love someone truly and completely. So, here's where I ask you to stay with me. Because the next part of this story isn't just about uncovering the truth, it's about facing the unknown, stepping into a place where the lines between love, fear, and hope blur. It's about understanding that sometimes the hardest secrets are the ones that teach us the most about ourselves. I promise you, as we go deeper into this mystery, you'll be asking yourself what you would do if you were in my shoes. Would you confront the truth head on? Would you run away? Or would you find a way to hold on, even when everything feels like it's falling apart? The answers are coming. But before that, there's one more secret waiting in the shadows, one that could change everything again and push the story to a place no one expected. And that secret? Well, it's closer than I ever thought it would be. Just when I thought I was gaining ground, the path to the truth started twisting in ways I hadn't expected. The very next day after reading that haunting entry, I went back to the diary to reread the part that had shaken me the most. But when I reached into the drawer where I'd found it, the diary was gone. Not misplaced or shoved to the side, but completely vanished, like it had disappeared into thin air. I searched the entire house, checked every room, every shelf, even my car, but it was nowhere to be found. It felt like someone had taken it on purpose, as if they didn't want me to know what was inside. The panic that set in wasn't just about losing the diary. It was the fear that this wasn't a coincidence. Someone was watching me, someone who didn't want the story to come to light. Then things got even stranger. A few days later, a message appeared on my phone. No number, no name, just a simple warning. Stop digging. Some truths are better left buried. At first, I thought it was a prank, but the timing was too perfect to ignore. It felt like a threat, subtle but chilling. I couldn't decide if I should be scared or angry, or maybe both. Who was behind this? Was it someone close to Emily, someone from her past? Or was it something bigger? The weight of the message pressed on me, making the house feel colder, the silence heavier. Around that same time, I ran into Sarah, one of Emily's oldest friends, at the grocery store. She was warm at first, but when I mentioned the diary and what I'd been discovering, her face changed. Suddenly, she was evasive, dropping vague hints about things that happened years ago and secrets people should never touch. I wanted to ask more, but she quickly shut down, saying, "Some doors once opened, don't close again." It was the first time I saw cracks in the support system I thought we had. Was Sarah protecting Emily? Or was she hiding something else? Her behavior planted a seed of suspicion that I couldn't shake. And then, there was the night I stumbled across an old photo tucked inside a book on Emily's shelf, a picture of her standing with a man I didn't recognize. They were smiling, but there was something off about the way she held herself in that photo, a tension beneath the surface that didn't match the happiness around them. When I asked Emily about it, she said it was just someone from her past, someone she'd lost contact with. But her eyes told a different story, a story she wasn't ready to share. That photo became another puzzle piece in the mystery I was desperate to solve. As I pieced together these fragments, the missing diary, the threatening message, Sarah's hesitation, and that mysterious photo, I realized this was no longer just about Emily's fears or regrets. It was about a hidden past, a betrayal I hadn't seen coming, and maybe even a secret alliance that threatened everything we had built. The more I dug, the more I understood that uncovering the truth was going to be far more dangerous and complicated than I ever imagined. And just when I thought the storm couldn't get worse, an unexpected visitor arrived at our door. Someone from Emily's past, someone I never knew existed, someone who brought with them a story that would turn everything upside down. Their presence stirred up old wounds and forced me to confront the fact that the life I thought I knew was just a carefully crafted illusion. So here I am, standing at the edge of a truth that could shatter everything, warned to stop but driven by a need to know, surrounded by people whose motives are unclear, and holding on to fragments of a story that's bigger than me. The question now isn't just what happened in that diary, but who can I really trust when the past refuses to stay buried? And as the shadows close in, the biggest twist is still waiting to reveal itself, a twist that could change everything in ways I never saw coming. Just when I thought the storm was confined to my world alone, the ripples began spreading farther than I ever expected. It wasn't just me feeling the weight of these secrets anymore. My brother, Jake, who'd always been a close part of our lives but mostly stayed on the sidelines of Emily's world, suddenly found himself caught in the crossfire. It started with a message on his phone, eerily similar to the one I'd received. "Stop asking questions. Some lines shouldn't be crossed." At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence or some bizarre prank targeting both of us. But as days passed, it became clear this was no accident. Whoever was behind this was watching, warning, maybe even controlling more than just one thread of this tangled web. Jake confided in me hesitantly, his voice tight with fear and frustration. He told me that strange things had started happening around him. Calls from blocked numbers, strange cars parked outside his house, and even a note slipped under his door that read simply, "Walk away before it's too late." The unnerving feeling of being watched, the creeping paranoia, it was no longer just my burden to carry. Now, our entire family was being drawn into a silent war of secrets, threats, and half-truths that no one seemed prepared for. As we tried to connect the dots, something else surfaced that threw everything into chaos. A new piece of evidence appeared, a letter, and signed and cryptic, slipped under our front door one evening. It contradicted nearly everything I'd learned from the diary and from Emily's reluctant admissions. This letter claimed that the fears Emily wrote about were not hers alone, that someone close to her had orchestrated parts of her pain and silence, manipulating her life and those around her for reasons I couldn't begin to understand. The words were sharp, almost accusatory, suggesting betrayals I never imagined possible and revealing that the truth was far messier than the neat story I'd hoped for. I started questioning everything. Who was this letter from? Was it an ally trying to help us see the bigger picture, or was it a warning wrapped in deception? Had Emily really been as isolated as the diary suggested, or was she a pawn in someone else's game? And perhaps most unsettling of all, who among the people I trusted was playing a part in this tangled mess? Every glance, every conversation suddenly felt loaded with suspicion. The safe lines between friend and foe blurred, and I found myself second-guessing even those closest to me. Adding to the turmoil, Emily's demeanor shifted again, growing colder and more distant, as if she was battling her own demons behind a wall I couldn't scale. She refused to talk about the letter or the threats, brushing off my questions with a weariness that cut deeper than any argument. It was as if she was protecting me from something, but at the cost of shutting me out completely. That silence gnawed at me, making me wonder if the woman I thought I knew was still there beneath the layers of fear and secrecy. Meanwhile, the mysterious visitor from Emily's past reappeared unexpectedly, showing up at places I frequented and leaving behind subtle clues that only added to the growing maze of uncertainty. Their presence wasn't welcomed by everyone. Some saw them as a harbinger of trouble, while others seemed to welcome their return with a knowing glance. Who was this person really? A friend? An enemy? Or something more complicated, caught between loyalties I couldn't yet decipher? All these threads were pulling tighter, and the stakes felt higher with every passing day. What began as a personal quest to understand my wife's hidden fears was now spiraling into a complex drama involving family, friends, and strangers with unknown agendas. The walls around us were closing in, secrets tangled so deeply that pulling on one thread threatened to unravel everything and everyone. As I share this with you, the truth remains elusive, clouded by conflicting clues and shadowed intentions. Every revelation seems to raise more questions, every answer a new mystery. Trust is fragile, and danger lurks in places I least expect. I don't know how this will end, but one thing is certain. The more I dig, the deeper I fall into a story far bigger than I ever imagined. And you're right here with me, on the edge of every twist and turn, waiting to see who will stand and who will fall as the real truth finally comes to light. The tension that had been simmering beneath the surface finally exploded into something dark and undeniable one late night when I realized I wasn't alone. It was the kind of moment you never expect to come, the creeping suspicion that the shadows following you aren't just your imagination but real, deliberate, and dangerous. I was driving home after a long day, the streets quiet, and the only light coming from dim street lamps flickering overhead. But then, out of nowhere, a car appeared behind me, same route, same stops, never letting me out of its sight. At first, I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, just some late-night driver, but as the minutes stretched, the unease turned into dread. Every turn I took, every stoplight, that car was there, like a predator waiting for its moment. My heart pounded, palms sweaty on the steering wheel, mind racing with questions. Who was following me, and why? That night shattered the thin veil of safety I'd been clinging to. The paranoia that had been whispering in the back of my mind became a roar. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Every creak in the house sounding like footsteps creeping closer. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at every unexpected sound, torn between the need to protect Emily, Jake, and myself, and the crushing fear that we were all trapped in something much bigger than we understood. The weight of the unknown pressed down so hard, I felt suffocated by it. And then, the unthinkable happened. Jake vanished without a trace. One moment, he was here texting me about how scared he felt, how the threats were escalating, and the next he was gone. His phone went straight to voicemail, and the police report I filed led nowhere. No ransom note, no sign of struggle, just silence. The disappearance shook me to my core and threw everything into chaos. Suddenly, the mystery wasn't just about uncovering secrets, it was about survival. I couldn't tell who to trust anymore. The friendly faces began to look like masks hiding something sinister. I replayed every conversation, every interaction, looking for clues I might have missed. Was Jake's disappearance connected to the diary? To the anonymous messages? Or was it a warning to me, an unmistakable sign that someone wanted me to stop, no matter the cost? My mind raced with scenarios, none of them comforting. The person or people behind this were ruthless, patient, and dangerous enough to cross lines I never thought possible. Emily's reaction added another layer of confusion and fear. She was quieter than ever, withdrawn, sometimes staring off into the distance as if reliving painful memories. Her eyes held a mix of fear and guilt that broke me every time I saw it. When I asked her about Jake or the threats, she'd shut down or give vague answers, telling me to be careful. It was like she was trapped between protecting me and guarding her own secrets, secrets that were now starting to feel like a heavy chain dragging us all down. In those dark moments, I found myself spiraling into doubt and paranoia, questioning not only those around me, but my own sanity. Was I losing grip on reality? Was this some elaborate trap, or was the truth even darker than I could imagine? The uncertainty was like poison, slowly eroding the foundation of everything I believed in. I wanted answers, but with every question I asked, the walls closed in tighter, and the silence grew louder. This nightmare wasn't just unfolding in the shadows anymore. It was invading every part of my life, turning once familiar places into haunted spaces filled with unseen threats. And through it all, one chilling truth stood out. The deeper I dug, the more I realized that the people we trusted the most might be the ones hiding the darkest secrets. And so here I am, caught in a maze with no clear exit, clutching onto fragments of a story that threatens to swallow me whole. The diary, the threats, Jake's disappearance, Emily's silence, they're all pieces of a puzzle that refuses to come together. The question now isn't just what happened or why, but whether I'll survive long enough to find out. And as the nights grow colder and the shadows longer, the only certainty is that this mystery is far from over, and the danger lurking in the darkness is closer than I ever dared imagine. Just when I thought I had reached the darkest, most desperate point of this nightmare, the ground beneath me shifted in a way that I never saw coming. It happened one rainy evening weeks after Jake's disappearance, when I received an unexpected visit from someone I had trusted implicitly, Emily's sister, Claire. She showed up at our doorstep without warning, soaked from the storm, eyes wild but urgent. At first, I was relieved to see a familiar face in the middle of all this chaos, someone who might finally help me piece together the shattered fragments of our lives. But what Claire revealed that night didn't just shake my understanding. It completely rewrote the story I thought I was living. With a trembling voice, she told me something I never suspected. Jake's disappearance was no accident, and neither was the diary, the threats, or the mysterious visitor from Emily's past. Claire confessed that she had known about the diary all along, and that Emily's fears about motherhood were not just internal struggles, but part of a much larger secret, one that involved Claire herself. She admitted that she'd been protecting Emily in ways I couldn't imagine, keeping the diary safe at times, deleting threatening messages, even trying to intercept the mysterious visitor. But most shocking of all was what Claire said about Jake. He hadn't been taken by some unknown enemy or stranger. Jake had chosen to disappear, running from something he uncovered, something he believed would put all of us in danger. I remember sitting there, stunned and struggling to breathe, as Claire's words crashed over me. The idea that Jake might have willingly vanished, not as a victim but as someone trying to protect us, turned everything upside down. It made me question every assumption I'd made, every theory I'd chased. If Jake knew more than he ever told me, then who else was in on this? And what exactly had he discovered that was so dangerous it forced him into hiding? But Claire's revelations didn't stop there. She hinted that the diary itself was only a fragment of a hidden history between Emily and her family, stories of betrayal, secrets passed down through generations, and a betrayal so deep it threatened to destroy them all. She spoke of a hidden agenda, a plan that wasn't just about Emily's fears of motherhood, but about a legacy that someone was desperately trying to bury. Someone close to us had been manipulating the narrative, twisting truths to keep a dangerous secret safe. And the threats, the warnings, they were all part of a larger game, one that had been playing out long before I ever opened that diary. Hearing Claire's words made me realize that the story I'd been chasing was far from simple. It wasn't just about a wife's hidden fears or a husband's quest for truth. It was about a complex web of trust and deception where every character had their own motivations and nothing was as it seemed. Suddenly, friends became suspects, allies became possible enemies, and the line between truth and lie blurred into something unrecognizable. I found myself questioning everything: the diary entries, the messages, even Emily's silence. Was she protecting me, or was she hiding a part of herself I couldn't handle? Was Jake's disappearance a sacrifice to save us all, or had he been pushed too far by forces we didn't understand? And Claire, was she really the protector she claimed to be, or was there something more she wasn't telling me? As the rain tapped against the window behind us, I realized that the mystery wasn't just about uncovering a hidden fear or a lost secret. It was about facing the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the people we trust the most carry the heaviest burdens, and sometimes those burdens are weapons in a fight we never knew we were part of. That night, everything changed. The story I thought I knew shattered into 1,000 pieces, leaving me with more questions than answers and a chilling understanding that the real truth was still out there, buried beneath layers of deception and silence. And as I looked at Claire, I knew that the next steps I took wouldn't just decide the fate of my family. They might decide if any of us make it out alive. So here we are, standing at the edge of the unknown, where every revelation brings new shadows, and the only certainty is that nothing, and no one, is quite what they seem. And as this story unfolds, you and I will be walking through the darkness together, chasing the truth that might just change everything. The truth, once it starts unraveling, has a way of forcing you into corners you never wanted to face. After Claire's revelation, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of impossible decisions, where every choice felt like a gamble with the highest stakes imaginable. It was no longer just about uncovering what happened or who was behind the threats. It became about protecting the people I loved while wrestling with the crushing weight of secrets that threatened to destroy us all from within. The lines between safety and truth blurred so completely that I didn't know which way to turn, and every step forward seemed to push me deeper into uncertainty. One night, the tension reached a breaking point when I confronted Emily directly. I needed answers, and I needed to know if she had truly been honest with me all along. The air between us was thick with things left unsaid, emotions tangled in fear, guilt, and desperation. Looking into her eyes, I saw the woman I loved, but also someone guarded by walls I hadn't known how to break through. I asked her about Jake, about the diary, about the threats, and for the first time, she hesitated, a flicker of pain crossing her face that I couldn't ignore. Then came the hardest words I've ever heard, a warning disguised as a plea, telling me to stop digging, to let the past stay buried, or risk losing everything, her, Jake, and maybe even myself. The ultimatum felt like a knife twisting in my chest. How do you choose between chasing the truth and protecting the fragile remnants of the life you built? How do you decide when every answer could tear your family apart? The fear was suffocating, knowing that pushing further might bring danger not only to me, but to the people I cared about most. And yet, turning away felt like betrayal, like giving up on the very trust one had fought to preserve. I was caught in a devastating paradox. To stay safe, I had to ignore the truth. To seek truth, I had to risk everything. Complicating things further, subtle signs of surveillance increased. The feeling of being watched didn't leave me, and strange calls kept coming, filled with silence or distorted voices that sent chills down my spine. Friends who once offered support now looked wary, their eyes flickering with secrets I couldn't reach. I started to question whether anyone was truly on my side. Even Emily's sister Claire, who had seemed like an ally, grew distant, her reassurances tinged with an urgency that made me doubt her motives. Was she protecting us, or shielding someone else? Every day felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss, where one wrong move could unravel everything. The emotional toll was immense. Nights spent wrestling with guilt over confronting Emily, fearing I was pushing her away, while days were filled with the relentless hunt for answers that slipped further out of reach. I grappled with my own doubts, wondering if I was losing grip on what was real and what was paranoia. The isolation was crushing. I longed for clarity, but found only shadows. In the midst of this chaos, a new revelation threatened to break me completely. A hint dropped by a trusted friend that Jake might have uncovered something not just dangerous, but catastrophic, something involving people with power and influence, far beyond our family scope. Suddenly, the mystery wasn't just personal anymore. It was tied to forces that didn't play by any rules I knew, forces that would go to terrifying lengths to keep their secrets safe. The stakes had skyrocketed, and I was in the middle of it all with no clear way out. This wasn't just about a diary or hidden fears anymore. It was about survival, loyalty, and the impossible choices we make when caught between love and truth. And as the pressure built, I realized the real battle was just beginning. One where every ally might be a threat, every truth a weapon, and every decision could change our lives forever. So now I ask myself, and you, what would you do if everything you believed was a lie, and the only way to protect the ones you love was to risk losing them completely? The answer isn't simple, and the road ahead is shrouded in darkness. But one thing is certain, I can't stop now. Not when the truth is this close, and the cost of silence is too high to bear. The walls I thought were closing in? They weren't just closing, they were collapsing, and the truth I'd been chasing exploded into a chaos far bigger and darker than I ever imagined. It wasn't just about Emily or Jake, or even the diary. The conspiracy ran deeper, tangled with people I'd trusted, places I thought were safe, and a web of deceit so vast it swallowed everything whole. The moment it hit me, my whole world tilted, and the stakes skyrocketed beyond anything I could handle alone. It started when a late-night call came from Claire. Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling with fear. She confessed that someone close to me, someone I'd never suspected, had been feeding false information, sabotaging my efforts, and watching my every move. The shock wasn't just in the betrayal, but in the fact that this person wasn't just a bystander. They were an active part of the conspiracy, working to keep the secrets buried no matter the cost. The trust I'd held onto like a lifeline cracked in an instant, replaced by a raw, burning sense of disbelief and anger. How could someone I cared for be the very reason everything was unraveling? Then came the flood of revelations. This conspiracy wasn't isolated to my family or our immediate circle. It involved powerful figures connected to Emily's past, linked to events and decisions that stretched far beyond what I'd ever considered. What Jake had uncovered was just the tip of the iceberg, a sinister network with reach into politics, business, and law enforcement, where silence was bought and enforced with threats that could ruin or end lives. Suddenly, the missing pieces fell into a terrifying picture of control, manipulation, and greed. This was no small secret. It was a monster hiding behind everyday faces, pulling strings from the shadows. As the truth unraveled, the danger became immediate. My phone was hacked, my emails wiped clean, and unmarked cars followed me day and night. Emily's once distant and guarded behavior turned into fear for her own life. She confided in me that she'd been threatened to stay silent or face consequences too horrible to imagine. The pressure crushed us, binding us in a shared desperation that was both terrifying and heartbreaking. I saw the toll it took on her, the woman I thought I knew, someone fighting to protect not just herself, but everyone caught in this nightmare. Every interaction felt like a high-wire act. Friends turned cold, allies disappeared, and the people I relied on seemed to fade into the background or worse, become obstacles in the way of survival. The emotional weight was unbearable. Trust was now a currency I couldn't afford to spend recklessly. My nights were sleepless, haunted by fear and uncertainty, and every shadow seemed to hold a new threat. Then, in the middle of this chaos, the ultimate betrayal landed like a thunderclap. The person I'd been confiding in most, someone who had offered a lifeline when I felt most alone, revealed their true colors. Their loyalty was a lie, their intentions darker than I ever imagined. They'd been playing both sides, feeding information to the very people trying to bury the truth. That revelation shattered what little stability I had left, turning my fight into a desperate battle against not just unknown enemies, but those closest to me. And yet, even as the walls closed in tighter and the risks grew deadlier, a stubborn part of me refused to back down. Because in this twisted game of secrets and lies, giving up wasn't an option. The truth needed to come out, no matter the cost. And so here I am, pushed to the edge, racing against time and shadowy forces that want silence more than anything. The conspiracy that began with a simple diary has become a fight for survival, trust, and justice. The moment I had been dreading and desperate for arrived in a blur of tension and raw emotion, a confrontation that felt like the collapse of everything I thought I knew. It was late, the kind of night when shadows feel alive and every sound carries a warning. I was standing in a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of town, heart pounding in my chest, breath coming in sharp bursts, as the last piece of this twisted puzzle finally fell into place. Across from me stood the person I never expected, the one whose betrayal cut deeper than any threat, whose motives had been hidden behind a mask of friendship and concern. They weren't just part of the conspiracy. They were the architect, the puppeteer who had manipulated everyone, including Emily, Jake, Claire, and me, for their own gain. The air between us was thick with unspoken accusations and years of deceit. As I laid out everything I'd uncovered, the diary, the threats, Jake's disappearance, Claire's warnings, their calm demeanor shattered. Their eyes flickered with anger and fear, revealing cracks in the carefully crafted facade. I demanded to know why they'd done it, why they'd destroyed the lives of everyone around them. Their confession was chilling. It wasn't just about power or money. It was about control, legacy, and secrets buried so deep that exposing them would topple more than just a family. It would shake the foundations of an entire network of influence and corruption. As the truth poured out, so did the danger. The warehouse doors slammed shut behind us, and I realized this was no ordinary confrontation. It was a trap designed to silence me once and for all. The person I faced was willing to do anything to keep their secrets hidden, and the stakes had never been higher. But in that intense, heart-stopping moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just fighting for answers anymore. I was fighting for survival, for justice, and for the family torn apart by lies. The struggle that followed was as much psychological as it was physical. Words became weapons, accusations flying in a charged atmosphere thick with betrayal and pain. Every revelation landed like a blow, every pause loaded with the weight of lives destroyed and futures uncertain. It was a battle of wills, a fight to break free from the chains of silence and deception that had bound us for so long. And just when it seemed the confrontation couldn't get any more intense, I pulled out a hidden piece of evidence, a recording Jake had made before he disappeared, capturing a confession that exposed the entire conspiracy and named everyone involved. The silence that followed was deafening. The person across from me paled, their mask finally crumbling under the weight of the truth. I thought this was the moment everything would end, the moment justice would finally be served. But then, in a twist no one saw coming, a second figure emerged from the shadows, a face I recognized but had never suspected, someone whose loyalty had been a question mark from the start. Their arrival turned the tide, revealing layers of betrayal I hadn't yet imagined. The conspiracy was even bigger, more complex, and far more dangerous than I thought. That night, surrounded by lies, threats, and unexpected alliances, I realized this story wasn't just about uncovering a secret. It was about navigating a world where trust was a weapon and survival demanded every ounce of strength and courage I had left. And as the final moments unfolded, with everything hanging in the balance, I knew that the truth, while finally within reach, came with a price none of us could have predicted. The aftermath of that night left everything forever changed, the pieces of the shattered puzzle scattered across lives that would never be the same. The person at the center of the conspiracy was exposed, their carefully hidden empire of lies crumbling under the weight of the truth Jake's recording had brought to light. It wasn't an easy victory. Justice was messy, complicated, and slow, and the scars left behind were deeper than anyone could have anticipated. Emily, Jake, Claire, and I found ourselves forced to confront not only the betrayal and danger that had upended our lives, but also the fragile hope of rebuilding from the wreckage. There were tears and whispered apologies, quiet moments where the silence between us spoke louder than words, and painful realizations about the cost of secrets kept too long. For Emily, finally opening up about her fears and past was both liberating and devastating, a release from the heavy burden she had carried alone for so many years. The diary that had sparked this whole journey became a symbol, not just of pain and fear, but of resilience and the power of truth to heal wounds no one else could see. Jake's return, though unexpected and cautious, brought relief but also fresh uncertainty, reminding us that some battles leave lasting shadows. Claire's role as protector and confessor showed the complexities of loyalty in a world where trust is both precious and perilous. And me? I was left with a deeper understanding of love, betrayal, and the quiet strength it takes to face the unknown. Yet even as we took tentative steps forward, a lingering sense of unease remained, like the final pieces of a puzzle still waiting to be found, just out of reach. The conspiracy had roots that spread wider than we could see, and questions about who else might be involved, or what hidden truths were still buried, whispered in the back of my mind. The threats faded, but the memory of being watched, of the danger that once lurked so close, never fully disappeared. It was a reminder that some stories don't have neat endings, that the line between safety and risk, trust and betrayal, is often blurred. As I reflect on everything that happened, I realize the story was never just about uncovering secrets or exposing lies. It was about understanding the complexity of the people we love, the shadows we all carry, and the courage it takes to confront them. It's about the fragile threads that hold us together even when everything feels like it's falling apart. And most of all, it's about the choices we make, whether to hide in silence or step into the light, no matter how uncertain the path ahead. If you like my story, then comment me please because it will happy me.